Hello, hello. Welcome to the Digitally Overwhelmed podcast. I'm Cynthia, your host, and I run Digital Bloom IQ, where I help health and wellness businesses get found in Google and heal more of the world. This is episode 206 of the podcast, and I have another really exciting SEO case study with my client, Marci of Tidbits. And I just love our conversation. I feel like we get into some really interesting aspects of working with an SEO expert. The biggest takeaway from this conversation, from my perspective, is that at the end of the day, you are your business owner of your website. You are the owner. You are kind of like the captain, and the SEO expert is serving you. And if you're working with someone, or you have worked with someone who's ever made you feel like inadequate in any way, or even like you're doing things wrong on your website, that's just not cool. In my books, an SEO expert should really inspire you, should guide you. Yes, sometimes there are discussions where things, there could be just opposing views. And I'm always looking to challenge my clients in areas where I feel like they're going to get growth, and I push them in that direction if I think it's going to be important for them. But I'm never, ever want someone to feel like they're doing something wrong when it comes to their website. So it's a topic we get into in this episode. And I'm just so proud of the results. So before we dive in, I do want to talk about some of the data results that Marci has had through our work together. And so this is a 6-month over 6-month view. And a lot of Marci's data is seasonal, right? So there is some variation here. But basically, through the work we did in AIM, we had a 36% increase in impressions. And you can just see this lovely jump in impressions. And I think this is really due to targeting different types of keywords, also improving existing content. That was a big part of the project. We took a lot of her existing blog posts that we saw and I saw had the potential to rank better, and we improved them and we made them better. And there have been some really specific pages that have seen big jumps in traffic. And so I'm just so proud of some of these results. For example, her dried cooked beans post increased traffic by 79%. Her burrata, Instant Pot burrata post also increased by 15%. And yeah, there's just been some really great growth in her blog. And I guess, again, going back to what I was saying before, of course we want growth. Of course we want, SEO to really be a good return on investment. But I feel like also the experience of working on your SEO gets to be fun. Yes, it's possible. Gets to be interesting. As on the business owner side, that doesn't always mean you need to just see all the things that your SEO expert is necessarily doing, but just having that faith and feeling like you're both on the same team. They're working in unison with what you're doing. They understand your business. It's just so important. And I wanted to mention that I've been talking about, just before we get into the conversation with Marci, I've been talking about this new SEO group program. And I want to apologize. This is launching soon. I've had a couple glitches and things happening. So I've decided to push the launch a little bit. It will probably be coming out on Friday, 24th of September. So depending on when you're listening to this episode, it might or might not be out. But I actually took it as a good thing because some of the delays that I've been having, just setting up sales pages and stuff, have actually gotten me to think about the program a little bit differently. So stay tuned. I will have more information very, very soon. If you want to be one of the first to get the information, I recommend going to my site, digitalbloomiq.com. There's a free SEO audit checklist you can download, and that also adds you to my emailing list. And that's the first people I let know I announced anything to. So I do recommend just getting on that if you want to be one of the first to hear about it. Just a little sneak peek, a little more information than last week. So it's kind of this combination of SEO consulting hands off. So me and my team are not actually touching your website, but SEO consulting, like customized guidance combined with a membership, and bringing those two things together and making them play. It's something I've never seen before done. So I'm really excited to launch it and share it with you guys. Again, stay tuned. I will be announcing more information soon. All right, here is my lovely conversation with Marci. Hey, Marci, how are you?
Doing good.
I'm so excited to have you on the podcast. And just to get started, why don't you just introduce yourself and your business to my audience?
So I'm Marci. I am the owner and creator of the blog Tidbits. And it's my food blog, but my sister does the home decor side of it. So it's kind of like a sister project here. We both had our passions, and I don't know anything about decorating, and she doesn't care about food. And so we brought these blogs together, and then we each kind of do our thing there. So I actually was a nurse practitioner and did that before I started blogging, but it was very much just as I started having kids and was gone all the time. I really hated not being there for them. So when my sister started talking to me about doing the food side of it, that is an awesome job where I can be home and do that and be able to, my daughter's homesick today, I can be home for her. And so, yeah, that's how it came to be. And the recipes I write are Instant Pot, for the most part, recipes, but I always try to put just kind of a different spin on recipes. I always try to keep them very much like whole food, healthy foods, and just kind of unique flavor twists on things. So
yeah, I think a lot of people appreciate your recipes because they're healthy, but they're also tasty. Not boring, right? Like healthy could have a bad, to some people maybe not the best connotation.
Totally. And that's what my sister that does the decor side of Tidbits, that's what she says. She says, I don't even care that they're healthy. It's just they taste so good. I don't care. It just tastes good.
Yeah.
So yes, that's what I love to do.
That's amazing. And so kind of the intention of this episode and what I was thinking about was just the journey we've had with your SEO and how we got started. And then at one point, we decided to do AIM, which is my longer term done for you SEO process. And so I wanted to just give my listeners a little bit of a taste of that experience on your end, and not getting into so much like the traffic numbers, but more just totally from the business owner side, like what it felt like to work with me. So before we got started with AIM, just tell me a little bit about how you were feeling with your business website, with your SEO. And how are you feeling about hiring? Because you'd worked with SEO people and the, SEO experts in the past. Like, how are you feeling about hiring maybe someone kind of new? We had done a smaller project, but the AIM process was like a little bit more intensive. So yeah, tell me about that.
Well, when I met you, I'd already worked with a few different SEO experts, and I hated SEO. I mean, that's a little strong to say, but I didn't like it because it felt like everyone was trying to take my personality out of it. And it was just it's all about the keyword research. It's all about Google. And it was totally sucking the fun of blogging out for me. And so I just got to the point where it was I can either blog just and do what I love, or it can be successful. It felt like I had to pick between those two things. And that was really frustrating to me.
Yeah.
Because I didn't want my blog to be a robot. I wanted it to have that feeling, you know, like, because food to me, it's not just I'm writing a recipe and putting it out. To me, it's like when I write a recipe, it's because there's so much thought, there's so much love, there's so much that goes into it that it's not, I didn't want to post it in such a boring robotic way. I wanted to show that feeling and that love for food in my blog posts. So so when I met you, that was like, I mean, I was at that point I was done. Like I just didn't want to write for SEO anymore. And so when I heard you, was it an interview? I think it was a podcast that you did. And it was you saying like that that it's important to have your voice in there, and it's important to do what you love and to make recipes that you love, and that not everything is just for Google. And it was like, okay, she speaks about SEO in the way that I had hoped it was. And so it was like, I knew that I needed help in that area because I knew there was things on my blog that needed more attention, but I didn't know what they were. I didn't really know what to take off after. Like I knew the things that everybody was saying about, I mean, what they were saying was to like just stuff your post full of keywords and all this stuff. So I had so many ideas in my head, but wasn't really sure where to go with it. I just wanted a more personalized version of SEO for my blog instead of just what everybody else was doing. So that's why your interview spoke to me. And I was like, all right, we're going to do this again. I'm going to give this another try. So that's how it kind of came to be.
Oh, I love that you mentioned that, because to me, like your creativity and your passion for your blog is the most important thing, right? Because we wouldn't be able to work together if you didn't have passion for writing and doing the things you do, right? And it just sucks that something like SEO would squash that. I think what happens is that SEO has many different components, right? So there's the technical, there's the keywords. And so you as a business owner, it can feel very overwhelming, first of all, to know what to focus on, but also to kind of know like what parts of this do I just need to hand off, and like what do I need to understand the basics of that will make a big difference in my traffic. And that decision can be scary because it's like you're really trusting someone to get into the back end of your website and make those changes.
And exactly. And that's why I had a hard time with the other people that I'd worked with. It was just, I didn't agree with their approach. Mm-hmm. And so it was really hard to like trust, just to let them go in. And I don't know, it just never felt right.
Yeah, no, totally. And you're not the first one to say that. I think it's a very valid concern. And to me, at the end of the day, Google's the side of Google that talks to us about the Google algorithm and stuff. They're always saying like, just create a great website. Yeah. Of course, they have all these guidelines and stuff like that. And there's things that could conflict with what could be perceived as a good website. But at the end of the day, I think, what I try to align with you and with all my other clients is like coming back to this idea of like, what's going to make it easier for the visitor to hang out on your website. And there's some basic things like site speed, something that loads within a reasonable amount of time. But then there's other things that get discussed, right, around internal links or just how the page, is organized. And so there is some back and forth, and there's customization. And so sometimes I think this happened with you, and it's a great example, is like sometimes I do maybe put you in a little bit of an uncomfortable place of like saying, okay, why don't we try this? And you are like, okay, but I've never done that. And then we try it and we see if it works. But there's always like, I want you to feel like even if we're experimenting with something, you're on board with that experiment. Yeah. And it's never something that feels completely alien or, just off-putting, because that it wouldn't make sense.
Yeah, I totally agree. But it's nice to be taken out of your comfort zone by someone who sees the bigger SEO picture.
Yeah.
It's not just another blogger that had an idea and it worked for them. Like, it was someone who knew the ins and outs of my blog, knew my thoughts on everything, and then, okay, knowing that, then I can get out of my comfort zone and try different things, because I know we're talking about my blog, not just everybody's blog in the world. It's like mine specifically. So
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's another kind of unfortunate thing of our industry, or the SEO industry, is a lot of people sell like kind of quick fixes or fast success stories. And I try and always be super honest with my clients and saying, look, this is a long-term game. Like, yes, there are things we can do short-term that might, spike things, or if I see something that I think will get you fast results, of course I will suggest it. But this is something that takes time. And that's, I think, actually one of the beautiful things of SEO, because it's so stable over time. It can be quite stable over time compared to other marketing. So anyway, that's also something, I think what you're saying is like, maybe someone, says, oh, like, do this one thing and it worked for my blog, but you don't even know, like, is that even relevant to my blog? Because there's so many things you could do. Really, there's so much that could be done. And it's about, focusing on the right steps in the right order and at the right time.
yes.
So as we went through the AIM process, and we kind of already, just talked about that, but how did it feel kind of to work with me? You already mentioned that. Did you feel like it was easy to take action on things? Like a lot of the, just bringing it down for the listeners, like a lot of the things that I would collaborate with Marci would be, sending her content proposals for changes, and then she would approve things, and sometimes she would write things. So how did that maybe specific part of the process feel to work on?
It made focusing on those SEO things really easy, because like, I still have my blog that I'm running. I'm still like writing recipes in the background. I'm taking the photos. Like, I'm still doing all of that because I wanted to keep up with that. I didn't want to just focus on refreshing recipe. It was like, I wanted to still be doing my thing in the background. I still wanted to be making new recipes and experimenting. And so to have you looking at the blog as it was, and then telling me what to do, it just made it very easy. It was like I didn't have to really know the whole ins and outs of it. It was almost like you were kind of giving me like a checklist, like, this is what we need to do. And it was so much easier just to be able to look through that checklist to be like, okay, this is my part that I need to do, and then Cynthia is going to take over, instead of thinking, okay, I got to post this, and then I've got to track it for the next 3 months to see if it was worth it. And then I've got to go in and like edit something if I need to. I didn't have to think anything that far. It was like, I could just focus on what I needed to do for you, knew that you were going to take care of the rest. And then I could keep doing what I was doing with the other recipes and everything else. So that's what it was for me, is it just took out a lot of the work, but I don't know how to say that. It made it so I knew what my part was, and I could let go of the rest, I guess is what I'm trying to say. So it made it feel like I was progressing SEO wise, but only in the ways that I needed to do, and then someone else could take care of the rest.
Yeah, because you're not a web developer, right? Or you're not going to understand like the ins and out of the back end. And so,
and I didn't want to either. I mean, I know some people like to know it all, and they'll spend hours like learning it and studying it. It's just, I never had the desire to just be like a Google Analytics pro and to know the ins and outs of SEO. Like, that doesn't excite me. And so I just didn't want to do it. And so exactly, like having a professional taking care of that so that I could do the part that I love is what.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, I love that you said that like some people do like all that like understanding that stuff. And I, maybe for some bloggers like you or business owners, like maybe they feel a little guilty. Like, oh, I don't like, SEO. Is there something wrong with me? But it's like, no, actually it's fine. It's kind of like, finance, like business finances, like maybe you need to understand some of the basics, but then you can also hire an accountant or someone, right, to take it over for you. And that's totally fine. And so again, with you, like it was a lot like enabling you to take action on the things that you can take action, and then collaborating and working with your web developer, who's also a close friend. You see, working with, just different providers. I think at one point we were working on something specific to site speed, and I was working with one of the teams that, one of the tools that are on your website, and talking with their team. And so that, to me, I love taking that off your plate, because even if you did that, you wouldn't be able to talk to them in the same way that I would. Like, I knew what to ask. I knew how to follow up with them. And we made some huge advances there on some areas, specifically around site speed, that I feel were really great for your SEO. And it gets complex really fast. So, of course.
And it was like you could speak their language, whereas like they were emailing me back and I didn't have a clue what they were saying or what I needed to do about it. And so just be able to go, okay, forward to Cynthia. Yeah, I love it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I love doing that, like translating it, and then just also kind of taking care of it, because it is, why worry you with stuff that it's like a whole other thing of information, I guess.
Yeah.
So just to kind of wrap up, and so kind of at this point, what do you feel were like the biggest changes that you saw coming out of AIM? Apart from, again, some traffic numbers, which were already mentioned in this episode, do you have anything that you feel was really, really like something you walked away with and you're happy with?
And yes, like I've seen like the traffic improving and all of that in the back end, but it was also, I think the biggest thing for me is that SEO has always been like, like this is me, like I have a clipboard, right? That's just like my ongoing to-do list. It's just how I do it. And that was like always on there, just like figure out SEO or figure out what you need to do for SEO purposes for your blog. And it sat on the clipboard for 2 years, because it was like I would see that and I was like, I don't know this step to make. So for me, like I love the numbers, I love it, like that all looks amazing, but it's the fact that I've like taken it to that level where I can like compete as far as SEO goes and as far as Google and all of that without feeling weighed down by it. So I know that there's always progression in that area with my blog now without me like actively thinking about it or going after it. It's like I can rely on someone to tell me this would be a great thing for your blog. We should focus on this. It's like, great, let's do that. So yeah, that's totally for me. It just made that unthinkable task on my clipboard just a part of my blog now. Like it's continually getting better without me having to study it, without me becoming a professional on it. And it just feels good to just check that off and know that that's happening on my blog without it like weighing me down.
Yeah, it's a relief, right?
Totally.
Yeah, and things do adapt and change, and you're always forwarding emails to me like, what's this? Why is someone, proposing this? Or like, what do I think about this? And I love those emails. Or, you were asking me about web stories, which I'm planning on doing a podcast very soon on. And I think that's one of the parts of SEO that fascinate me, like the evolving nature. But I know my clients find that super overwhelming and frustrating. They're like, why does it have to change?
Because there's always something new. And it's like, if I did every single thing that people said I needed to do for SEO, like it would be it would suck all the fun out of blogging.
Yeah.
So it's nice to have someone regulating that. Like, yes, this would be great for you. This we can let go. Like, that's amazing.
Yeah. Yeah. It's strategic and
yeah,
we're using that time correctly. So amazing. Oh my God, I love it. Okay, just last like kind of bonus extra question. So for someone out there who's like starting to blog or they have been blogging, like what's one piece of advice that you would give to them? Not SEO related, it could be anything. Just around, yeah, like just maybe they're feeling a little uninspired or like blah. Like, do you have any inspirational words for someone who's or even thinking of starting a blog? It's still a great time to start a blog in my head, but.
And I would say, like, if you're starting a blog, you obviously have a passion there about something, whether it's for food or whether it's decor or whatever it is. Like, you have a passion for it or you wouldn't be starting it anyways. So I would just say, like, if you were ever feeling like, I mean, obviously you're not going to wake up every single day just like super passionate to sit down to the computer and work, but I think it will always be there. Like, you'll always know you're on the right track because you'll always love it and you'll be excited to do it. You know, excited might vary day to day, but there'll always be like, you enjoy it. And I would say, if you ever feel like that's going away, then you need to step back, kind of see what's taking the joy out of it. Because that's totally what, I mean, it was for a year that I blogged very specifically. Like, every blog post, I was like researching the heck out of keywords, and I dreaded writing a blog post so bad. And so it was like, it was about a year mark after that I was just like, this is not fun. And it was like, that was the key to me of like, then you're not doing something right. We need to switch gears here because it's not fun anymore. You're not feeling that passionate about it anymore. And so whether you have a blog or you're thinking about starting a blog, I would just say to watch that. Like, make sure that it's still exciting you, that it's fun, you know, and it may become something totally different. You know, might have my blog that is like led to another business, you know, and maybe one day the blog will go away and my focus be on that business, because it doesn't always have to be what it started out as. So just being able to see like, okay, the excitement, the passion, the joy is not there right now. Why? Do I need to go this way? Do I need to change something? So always paying attention to that, because I think as you follow that, that's what's going to take you to success. You don't have to just do what everybody else is doing, because that's boring. And it's if everybody's doing the exact same thing, like, how are you ever really going to get ahead? So I think the only way to make sure you're getting ahead or to a place you want to be is that you're paying attention to how you're feeling about your work. So that would be my closing thought.
Oh, I love that. And it's like, what would be the point anyway of doing something you don't want to do? I mean, I don't know. It's like a whole other conversation, but like, oh, and just to quickly, I just want to like add how we work with keywords. So like with Marci, you know, but this goes with a lot of my clients. I propose keywords, but there's always a back and forth conversation. So I'm never going to be like, you have to write about this. I mean, that would just be ridiculous. But sometimes I do challenge you. Like, I remember the Instant Pot, what was it? Not meatloaf.
Beef stew.
Beef stew. I remember you're like, oh, beef stew. And you had to go back and like find another recipe. And I think that post actually is doing really well. So
no, I was going to say that because like, there's like some soup recipes you told me, like split pea soup, lasagna soup. What else was it? And it was like foods that didn't interest me, but then I'm like, okay, but can I make these good? And it was fun. It was like, yes, I can make these good and I can make it something I want to eat. So it was, I liked that. It was like split pea soup. That's gross. Well, actually, I can make that really good. So yeah.
Yeah, no. And the reason it's just like, to me, it's a conversation because there's keywords like you had put also Instant Pot farro Farrow. Yeah, it's like a grain or
Borrow. Yeah.
farrow.
Uh-huh.
That one is doing amazing, and I didn't give it. So it's kind of like it's a collaboration, and the keywords are suggestions and guidelines, and of course there's data to back it up. But you also know the trends, and so many of my clients predict keywords, right? So there might be a keyword that doesn't initially rank, and then in 3 months, because they can see the trends that don't show up in these keyword research tools. So anyway, that's something that it's just, I'm so passionate about that, of like getting into those conversations of like, okay, let's talk about why you don't want to write about this. And then, sometimes there's a really good reason and it just doesn't align, right, with the website. But yeah.
Exactly.
Well, thank you, Marci, so much. This was so great. And sharing your experience, I'm sure, has given a lot of people some insight, considering hiring an SEO expert.
Yeah.
And you can find Marci's website at tidbits-marci.com. Bye.
Thanks, Cynthia. See ya.